نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله تبارك وتعالى عليه وعلى آله وأصحابه وبارك وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. فقال الإمام أبو عبد الله محمد بن إسماعيل الجعفي والبخاري حدثنا سليمان بن حرب قال حدثنا شعبة عن قتادة عن صالح أبي الخليل عن عبد الله بن الحارث رفعه إلى حكيم بن حزام رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم البيعان بالخيار ما لم يتفرقا أو قال حتى يتفرقا فإن صدقا وبينا بورك لهما في بيعهما وإن كتما وكذبا محقت بركة بيعهما. This is a hadith narrated by Imam Bukhari rahimahullah on the authority of Hakim ibn Hizam radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And in between Imam Bukhari and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, there are 6 people, there are 6 narrators, ending with Hakim ibn Hizam. And Hakim radiallahu anhu was a prominent Sahabi. Many ahadith narrated from him. One of the most famous ahadith that is narrated from him is that he was in some financial need. He came to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and asked him to give him something. So the Prophet ﷺ gave him something. And he came back again and asked him for something. And Nabi ﷺ again asked him something, gave him something. And then he came back again and asked for something. And the third time, again, Rasulullah ﷺ gave him something. And after giving him something the third time, then he said, Ya Hakim. He said, Hakim, this dunya is definitely something very attractive and something that pulls the heart. That person who takes it with ghina, meaning not acting as if he is completely greedy and devoted to it, but he takes it knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who provides him. And he is not greedy for it. He knows he's going to get what he's going to get. And he tries to keep himself away from asking. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him blessings in what he is getting. But that person who takes it, who asks for it with his own tongue and then takes it and puts himself in the position where he is extending his hand, then his need will never be fulfilled. Person who goes around begging for it, his needs will never be fulfilled. And that person who seeks to be independent from others, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make him independent. After that, Hakim ibn Hizam radiallahu anhu never asked anyone for anything at all. To the extent that sometimes he would be riding on his camel or on his animal, and his whip, the crop that a person drives the animal with, it would fall from his hands. And somebody would offer to pick it up for him. He would say, no, I'm going to pick it up myself. After that, he never asked anyone for anything again. To the extent that the shares that were allotted for the Muhajirin and Ansar, even that he would not take. He would say, no, I don't want it. I don't need it. It's mentioned in some riwayat that Hakim ibn Hizam radiallahu anhu was born in the Kaaba. So this is a very special Sahabi. He is narrating from Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam this hadith. Al-Bayyani bil-Khiyari ma lam yatafarraqa. This hadith is quoted in the chapter that pertains to business transactions. Just like these books of hadith have chapters about ibadat and about akhirah and about iman and about various aspects of life, most of these books of hadith have chapters devoted on business transactions. This is one aspect of life that Islam has not only given commandments for, but Islam has given a whole system through which we are to conduct our businesses. And rules and guidelines have been given to us by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If those rules and guidelines are followed, then a person will prosper in his business, in his trade, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will also be pleased with him. And if a person does not observe those guidelines, then he will not prosper in his commerce, in his business. He may see wealth coming, and wealth may accumulate, but that wealth will become a source of serious problem for him. That wealth, instead of bringing him comfort and becoming a means of taking care of his needs, that wealth will become a source of strife in his family and in his life, and it will become nothing but a headache for him. And perhaps that wealth will become a means of bringing great, great calamities upon him. So, the guidelines for how to conduct business, whether it's buying, selling, bartering and trading, renting and leasing something, renting from someone, whether it be a house, a place, whether it be transportation, working for people, hiring people, having things made, doing cash transactions, doing debt transactions, borrowing money, loaning money, financing transactions, partnerships. All of these things have been explained to us in a great deal of detail, so that the Muslim, just like he understands that there is a system and there are commandments for the way we worship, he understands that there are commandments for the way we conduct our business. So one of those ahadith that talk about some aspects of business, and more importantly, the hadith conveys the spirit of commerce and business in Islam, is this hadith that we have just read in front of you. Al-Bayyani bil-Khiyar ma lam yatafarraqa. The first part of this hadith is actually a rule. It's a stipulation. It's a guideline for business. When two people enter into a business contract, Al-Bayyani bil-Khiyar, they are both free to make a choice. Both people that are participating, or both parties, if it be more than one person, could be two companies, both parties are at liberty to choose, as long as the talks of that deal are in process. That may be it could be a minute, it could be an hour, it could be over a series of days or weeks or months or even years. As long as that deal is being discussed and bargaining and negotiation is taking place, both parties are at liberty to choose whether they want to complete the transaction or not. The word used in this hadith is that both parties are free to choose as long as they don't separate, as long as they don't disperse. مَا لَمْ يَتَفَرَّقَا. So tafarruq, it could have two meanings. One meaning is that until they conclude that conversation and they conclude that transaction in their words, and then they go on to discuss something else, but that deal is done. The other meaning could be until they physically disperse and separate and go their own ways, until they leave that particular majlis and gathering. Based on these two meanings, the fuqaha have given two interpretations of this hadith. Because there is something called khiyar, there is something called a choice in every transaction. Both parties have a choice, and these choices are of various kinds. One is a general choice. Nobody can oblige you to buy or sell anything. So you're coming in to any deal with a choice. The second thing is that sometimes conditions are given. Some conditions have been laid by Sharia, and some conditions can be discussed between the two parties. That, for example, I'll give you this much time. After the contract is concluded, I'll give you this much time. And within this time, you can bring that thing back to me. And sometimes, another condition is brought in that, well, if this thing works, okay, I will keep it. If it does not work, then I will return it. This is khiyarul aib. This is something stipulated from Sharia. But there is also a choice that Allah has given every human being, by which he is not obliged to do any transaction until he actually agrees to it. So, when that transaction is concluded, they finish discussion about it and both parties have agreed, say we have a deal here. So that open choice that they were coming into, that no longer exists. The deal is done. Now if they sit around and talk about something else, even if they don't disperse, the deal is already done. It could be in the form of signing, it could be by verbal agreement, an offer and an acceptance of the offer, a formal acceptance, whatever the case may be. So based on this, Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullah and Imam Malik rahimahullah, they say that as long as the conversation, as long as the verbal bargaining or the written bargaining is taking place, both parties have a choice. Once that is concluded, even if they're sitting together, that choice is finished, it's over. Now after that, a person cannot say, well, I don't want to do this anymore. Somebody's offering to buy something, says, I will buy this for this much. He says, okay, I've sold it to you for this much. Agreed? Agreed. It's done. The deal is done now. Sometime later he says, you know what? I'm not buying it anymore. Well, you know what? He's already bought it. He's already bought it. Not that, okay, I'm going to buy it. No, that does not complete the transaction. Or he says, I'm going to sell it. Okay, I'm going to sell it to you for this much. No. We're talking about actually concluding the transaction, after which that person becomes the owner of that thing which he has bought. Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal and Imam Shafi'i rahimahumullah, they say that they do have a choice until they physically separate. So this is the difference of opinion regarding this mas'ala. Now, the next part of the hadith, فَإِن صَدَقَا وَبَيَّنَا, that was a rule, that was a guideline. But now going back to those discussions, those negotiations that a person comes in, engages himself into, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam is saying is that if these people come into this deal speaking the truth, وَبَيَّنَ. Sadaqa, وَبَيَّنَ. And they clearly explain everything. It means that the seller clearly explains what merchandise he is selling. And the buyer clearly explains how much he's going to pay, what currency it's going to be in, how much time it's going to be in. If both speak the truth and both clarify their side of the deal. So, بُورِكَ لَهُمَا فِي بَيْعِهِمَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts barakah in that transaction. What is barakah? Barakah is a very big word, and it has a very vast meaning in Sharia. But one of the meanings of barakah is that transaction will become a source of betterment for both parties. Wealth will grow, or whatever wealth is made, whatever money is made, whatever benefit is gained through that transaction, it will go a long ways. And perhaps even if that amount is minimal and nominal, but a great deal of things, a great deal of good will be achieved through even that small amount. And a meaning of barakah also is that it will bring these two parties closer together. It will become a source of strengthening that bond and perhaps strengthening that business relationship and developing into a friendship. وَإِن كَتَمَا وَكَذَبَا. And if they conceal, if they hide, and if they lie, مُحِقَتْ بَرَكَةُ بَيْعِهِمَا. Then barakah is erased from that transaction. So what it means is that somebody is not coming forward with exactly what he's selling. For example, he's either hiding it, he's hiding a fault, he's hiding something, you see something is missing, or he is trying to conceal the quality of it. It's not the quality that he is saying. Okay, that would be lying as well. Something happened to it, and he is not giving full exposure. There is some chance that this thing will not work the way it's supposed to, and he's not saying it. Or he just blatantly lies. He lies about it. So, it could be something of low quality and he's trying to pass it off as something of high quality. It could be something from one country who is manufacturing something for a much cheaper price, but he's trying to pass it off as from that country. I don't like to give examples of specific countries, but I'll tell you my own experiences, in the subcontinent, that this is rampant. It's just rampant. Whether you go to buy cloth, whether you go to buy a watch, you go to buy glasses. I have stories about everything that I bought. And they have these terminologies. And they have these names of countries that are supposed to represent specific values. So something that's from China is supposed to be something really cheap. And something that's from Japan is supposed to be something very high. Something that's from Italy, something that's from America, something that's from Europe. And they have all of this cheap stuff, and they're trying to pass it off as something very, very precious and valuable. You go to stores and you say, look, I want the real merchandise. And they'll say, well, we have three kinds of merchandise. We have the real stuff, then we have the real fake stuff, and then we have the fake stuff. Which one do you want? One relative of mine went to go buy medicine. So they have these places that supply medicines. So you take the slip to them, and so he said, look, give me the good stuff, give me the right stuff, because I've heard there's a lot of, placebos, and there's a lot of just, fakes and copies. So he said, well, we have three qualities. हमारे पास एक नंबर की भी है, दो नंबर की भी है और तीन नंबर की भी है. How much money are you willing to pay? And it all says the exact same thing. It has the same packaging. Supposedly the same company. Everything is the same. When these things start to happen at an individual level, that person at an individual level will go to ruin. And when these things happen at the level of a country, that country will go to ruin. There will be no khair in the business of that country. No matter what country it is. Because Rasulullah ﷺ has said so. Imam ibn Hajar al-Asqalani rahimahullah, he states in sharh of this hadith that this hadith is one of the proofs that a person cannot gain dunya without having deen. A person cannot truly prosper in dunya without having deen in every aspect of his life. Now business is something that many people have to do. And actually, in one aspect, every single one of us is doing business. When we are going to buy something, that's business. That's bay'ah. Whether we have a shop, whether we have a service that we are providing, whether we're importing, whether we're exporting, whether we are a consultant for somebody, that's also a bay'ah. Whether we're somebody who's out for hire, who takes contracts, all of these are transactions. They require clarity and they require honesty. And if a person is able to observe honesty and uprightness and trustworthiness, then that business will not only give him prosperity, but it will bring him very close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why it comes in a hadith narrated by Imam Tirmidhi on the authority of Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu anhu, that التاجر الصدوق الأمين مع النبيين والصديقين والشهداء. That businessman, that merchant who has the quality of sidq, he is honest and he is trustworthy. So that business will take him on the day of judgment to be raised with the anbiya, the siddiqeen and the shuhada, even though he was just a businessman. Once Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was passing through the marketplace. He said, Ya ma'ashar at-tujjar, O merchants, O businessmen. So everyone turned immediately towards Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, At-tujjaru yub'athuna yawm al-qiyamati fujjaran illa man ittaqa wa barra wa sadaq. He said, these tujjar, these businessmen, on the day of judgment, they will be raised as fujjar, open, disobedient people of Allah. Openly disobedient. Illa man ittaqa, except for those that are God-fearing. Wa barra, and they are kind. They are kind. They have goodwill in their transactions. Wa sadaq, and he speaks the truth. And sometimes what a person does is that in order to make his merchandise sell, he will take oaths. He will swear. I swear that this is this kind. I swear that this is worth that much. I swear this is of that quality. And if that person is lying, so Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says that in one hadith, it's mentioned that al-yaminu al-fajiratu manfaqatun lis-sil'a mamhaqatun lil-baraka, aw wa fi riwayatin mamhaqatun lil-rizq. That these false lies, these false testimonies that people make in order to make their stuff sell, this may make his merchandise move, and it also removes barakah, it erases barakah, and it erases his rizq. It actually decreases his rizq. In one hadith, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that there are three people that on the day of judgment Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not look at them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not look at them, nor will He purify them, and they will have a dreadful punishment, painful punishment. He said this 3 times. ثلاثة لا ينظر الله إليهم يوم القيامة ولا يزكيهم ولهم عذاب أليم. He said it 3 times. So Sahaba, they said, خَابُوا وَخَسِرُوا يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ مَنْ هُمْ? Allah will not look at them. He will not purify them. Meaning that Allah will have nothing good to say about them. And they will have a dreadful punishment. Sahaba said, these people are gone, they're finished, they're lost. Who are they, O Prophet of Allah? So Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said, Al-Musbilu izarahu, Al-Mannanu bi'ata'ihi, Wal-Munfiqi sil'atahu bil-halif al-kadib. That person who drags his trousers beneath his ankles. And that person who gives things and then shows it to the person, makes the person feel that, look what I've done for you. He gives, and then he expresses his favor on that person. And the third person is the one who sells his merchandise by false testimonies and false oaths. I swear this is like this, I swear by this, I swear by this. So this business that we do, and many of us do various kinds of business, this can become a source of khair in dunya and akhirah, and it could also become a means of shar in dunya and akhirah. There is much more to business than just selling things, than just making money out of things. If we do not observe the etiquettes and the morals that have been given to us by Islam, then that business may be a disaster for us. Now there are some things that we need to observe that make a business transaction complete. The first thing, obviously, is honesty in whatever we are doing. And even before that, the type of business that we are doing should be something that is halal. We should not be buying or selling or renting or leasing or working for anything that is haram. So, if a person is doubtful about the kind of earning he is engaged in, then he should ask somebody. The slightest doubt in the kind of business you are doing, you should ask someone and you should correct it. And your risk will not increase, not decrease. Your risk will never decrease by being honest and by adopting taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The method by which we are doing business, is it halal or not? So the business itself, the things that are being bought and sold, and the exchange, the thing that they're being exchanged for, that by itself must be halal first. The second thing is that there must be honesty. Obviously, if we're doing haram business and we're being honest about it, it doesn't mean anything. Right? Somebody is selling liquor and being very honest about his liquor. So that doesn't mean anything. So, the business itself must be halal. The commodities and merchandise that is being exchanged must be halal. And then the second thing is, there must be an honesty. And honesty means that we should not be lying about what we are selling. We should not be lying about the quality of the thing we are selling. Both things are included. Somebody told me once that one country was exporting something to another country, and this has happened actually. It happens all over the world. That one country, they ordered some kind of grain. They ordered grain. So instead of sending them grain, they take the payment in advance. Instead of sending them grain, they sent them hay. So they got a whole, I don't know how many hundreds of containers of hay. So they lied. They said, we're sending you this grain, and they ended up not sending it. Also about the quality. We should not try to pass off our stuff as something other than what it is. Whether you're dealing with clothing, whether you're dealing with food, sometimes, you see, the food has all kinds of wrong things in it, harmful things in it, or it's a very low quality of food and it's trying to be passed on as something very, very high and very pure. So that's the second thing. The third thing is to have a mutual leniency. We should not go in with this hard-nosed attitude that I'm going to go in, I'm going to strike a bargain, and I'm going to make this much, and that's it, and not looking towards the other person to see what he can do, what he cannot do. There's a hadith of Bukhari in which Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, رَحِمَ اللَّهُ عَبْدًا سَمْحًا إِذَا بَاعَ وَإِذَا اشْتَرَى وَإِذَا اقْتَضَى. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on that person who is generous, who is gentle, who is caring when it comes to selling something, when it comes to buying something, and when it comes to going and asking for his dues. Something is owed to him. He is kind and gentle even when he does that. Doesn't go and cause a ruckus and saying, hey, you owe me this much, causing noise, being rude. No. He's kind, he's gentle, he is considerate. A good word for samh is that he is considerate of the next person. If the next person is delaying in a payment, then that person, you see, he says, okay, I'll give you a chance, I'll give you some time, it's all right. And the person on the other side, he is doing his best that no, I should never ever delay a payment. It goes on both sides. Otherwise what happens is that we have people taking advantage of the nice people. People start taking advantage of the nice businessmen, and they ruin their business. And then all of a sudden, they're not so nice anymore. So that consideration must be on behalf of both parties. The one who is buying should sell with consideration and kindness, and the one who is selling should do the same. And sometimes we have this issue where somebody can pay and he is not paying. He refuses to pay. So it comes in hadith, مَطَلُ الْغَنِيِّ ظُلْمٌ. The delay in payment of somebody who can pay, this is a great dhulm. And on the day of judgment, الظُّلْمُ ظُلُمَاتُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. Dhulm will come in the form of nothing but darkness. At the time when a person will be in the most need of nur, they'll be running around looking for nur. At that time, this dhulm will surround them in the form of darkness. So if we give our word that we are going to do something at a certain time, we must make all humanly possible efforts to pay up to what we have stated, what we have said. The fourth thing is that we should avoid taking oaths. We should avoid taking oaths. And we should not try to pass off what we have as something other than what it is. Or a service. For example, sometimes it happens in services also. We will do this and this and this and this and this for you. And then when the person, he contracts that service, he says, okay, fine, I will take that. The person only does half of what he promised. Once Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was passing by a person who was selling grain. It was wheat. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he took his hand and he pushed it all the way in to that pile. All the way deep into that pile of wheat. And he pulled out some grains and they were wet. He said, what's this? He said, O Prophet of Allah, it rained. And so those got wet. He said, yeah, if it rained, then how come you didn't put them outside so people could see that the grain inside is wet? Why didn't you put that on top? Why are you putting the dry ones on top and hiding the ones that you know people are not going to buy, and you are tricking them into buying it? So a Muslim never ever tries to trick someone into buying anything. Imam Bukhari Abdullah in the same chapter, he mentions a riwayat in which Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he wrote a contract with somebody. And that person, Adda ibn Khalid, he sold, apparently it was a servant, it was a slave that Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had purchased. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wrote down that this is to effectuate a business transaction between Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and Adda ibn Khalid. And this is a sale from one Muslim to another. This is a sale of one Muslim to another, meaning that we are going to deal with each other like Muslims. And this transaction is being conducted on the condition that there is no lies, there is no concealment of faults, and there is nothing wrong with the merchandise. And that slave, for example, in terms of the slave, that this is not somebody who is sick, not somebody who will run away, or he's not a runaway. So all of these things were very clearly laid out. The fifth thing for any businessman is that he should frequently give Sadaqa as an atonement for any mistake that may have occurred during his business. Frequently. It comes in hadith. The Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam addressed the businessmen. He said, Oh merchants, this business is approached it is susceptible to shaitan, and it is susceptible to sinning, making mistakes. Therefore, give sadaqah frequently. Person who will do this, he will find a great deal of khair and barakah in his business. Put some money aside and just give it. Keep giving, constantly give, even if it's a little bit. This will bring a great deal of khair and barakah in our businesses. The sixth thing is that whenever we are doing something that is in the form of a debt, whether that means giving the merchandise now and receiving the payment later, or taking the payment now and receiving the merchandise later, or doing both later and just signing the contract now, there are some things that have to be defined very clearly. The merchandise itself, what it is, its quality. When will the merchandise be handed over to the person? When will the payment be received? What will be the quantity and the quality of the merchandise? And what will be the quantity and the quality of the payment? If somebody is doing business, for example, in Canadian dollars, and you say, well, yeah, I'm going to give you $500 for this. And then he shows up with Barbadian dollars. He shows up with dollars from Barbados. Okay, this is cheating. This is not correct. These things should be laid out very clearly in all debt-based transactions. What happens today is that there are many, many misunderstandings amongst people when they're doing business. And because of this, a lot of strife is created. A lot of arguments take place. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu, إِذَا تَدَايَنْتُمْ بِدَيْنٍ إِلَىٰ أَجَلٍ مُسَمًّى فَاكْتُبُوهُ. Whenever you do a debt-based transaction, something that another person will have to pay, always write it down and bring witnesses on that. If we do this, we will find that we will be saved from most of the hassles and problems that come in the path of business, especially when we are doing business with other Muslims. The way the ummah is today, we cannot afford to have more divisions amongst us. Therefore, you should have contracts drawn up for every transaction. You should have a very clearly worded contract upon which both parties agree. Every other day, we have a conflict between two brothers. They were doing some kind of partnership, they were doing some kind of sale, they were doing some kind of business venture. And I expected him to do this and he did not come forward. He was supposed to do this much, he was supposed to pay this much. This is how the profits were supposed to be distributed. This was supposed to happen 2 years later. I was supposed to, sell my shares to this person, or he was supposed to buy my shares. And there's hundreds of different equations that come into this. The bottom line is, yes, we are Muslims and we trust each other, but things must be written down. Today, what's happening is if a person asks, he's doing business with someone, he wants it to be written down, the person considers it to be an insult. So what, you don't trust me? Don't you know I'm a Muslim? What's wrong with you? It's not a matter of trust, it's a matter of a rule. Make it a rule. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying it, do it with the intention of fulfilling the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even if it's something that you do on a regular basis, write it down. Allah is saying, write it down. That is for your benefit. It's to help your business run smoothly. So those people that are buying, whether you're supplying, whether you're a retail person, whether you're a wholesale person, whether you're importing, whether you're exporting, don't just go on words. Because every day we're seeing how these words are turning into conflicts. If we follow some of these basic rules, then it will be much easier for us to do business amongst each other. And we should never ever, a Muslim never tries to take advantage of the next person. Look, there's a fine line between making a profit and taking advantage. Everybody does business to make profit. Nobody does business as a charity. Nobody runs business as a charity. This is lillah, this store is lillah. Therefore anyone who wants can come and take anything they want from it. This company is bas Sadaqa jariyah. Nobody does that. We have other ways of giving Sadaqa jariyah. So everyone wants to make profit, but there is profit and then there is exploitation. We should not be exploiting people. If we see that somebody is, and you know when that will be tested, when we see somebody who's very simple, who doesn't know anything about business, we go into business with somebody like that, that's when it will be seen how much fear of Allah we really have. Are we going to deal with him fairly, or are we just going to take him for a ride? So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to implement these things. Every now and then, we'll be bringing these kinds of hadith that pertain to our practical lives, because these are very important things. And inshallah, on and off, we'll be bringing such things that pertain to our daily lives and our daily, things. And hopefully, through these sessions, we will increase our knowledge and our awareness of how we are supposed to actually run and conduct our lives as Muslims. May Allah give us tawfiq. I mentioned to you last week, I suggested to you last week to think about the timings for this dars. So, if you brothers want, you can keep it.